Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are now on day 98 of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. And today, it looks like Russian forces are continuing what is tantamount to a mop-up operation now in several Donetsk. It appears that Ukrainian forces are withdrawing. Some forces remain in defensive position on the eastern bank of the Donetsk River. That's this river right here. And there is still continued resistance by Ukrainian forces, but I believe even this map here that we're looking at is fairly could be incorrect in terms of the amounts of territory gained within the vicinity of several Donetsk. They've probably pushed quite a bit deeper, and we understand now that about 20% of Severodonetsk is under Ukrainian control, and Russian infantry units, National Guard units, Spetsnaz forces continue street to street, house to house clearing of areas within Severodonetsk. And outside of Severodonetsk, the Russians continue its pressure campaign along a very broad front running all the way from Izum all the way down south of Donetsk. We also are of the understanding now that the United States may in fact provide the multiple launch rocket system that the Ukrainian military has been requesting, specifically the HIMARS or the tracked version of the MLRS system. Now, the question is the United States then going to give the Ukrainian forces the munitions that the Ukrainians really want when they request the HIMARS system? And that is the ATACMS. That is the larger semi-ballistic, very, very precise guided missile. It's well over a 3,000-pound guided ballistic missile that is fired from this HIMARS. Now, it also has the ability to fire the 227 millimeter, either M26 or M30, I believe it's called, guided rocket. Now, the thing is the Ukrainians already have a very similar capability to the smaller version, the smaller rocket that is fired from the HIMARS. So the Ukrainians possess a variety of Soviet, Russian-built systems, and then they also have their own systems that have been developed from those Soviet systems that the Ukrainians possess. The Ukrainians possess the BM-30 Smerch. They possess the BM-27 Uragan. So very, very similar capabilities in terms of those systems and the smaller 227 millimeter rockets that are fired from the HIMARS system. Now, there could be some question in terms of precision, just how much precision-guided ordnance would the United States give? Would they give the guided version of the 227 millimeter rocket with the HIMARS, or would they give them the unguided version, the M26 version instead of the M30? But at the same time, if the United States gives the HIMARS and they only give the 227 millimeter either guided or unguided rocket to the Ukrainians, well, the Ukrainians still possess that same sort of capability. So it would not be really an enhanced capability that the United States would give the Ukrainians. Now, I think where it would really kind of come into play for the Ukrainian military is the Ukrainian army is having difficulty in keeping a lot of these larger caliber rocket systems that it possesses. Again, the BM-27 Uragan, the Smerch, adequately supplied with munitions, because a lot of their depots are being destroyed, and their ability to produce either these systems or upgraded systems such as the Ukrainian built Vilka system, which is a derivative of the Smerch, and again, very much the same capability as the smaller rocketry that is fired from the HIMARS. The only The only thing that is a bit different that the Ukrainians could receive in terms of the HIMARS would be the larger ballistic missile that the United States could supply to those HIMARS. So if you think about the HIMARS system, it would normally fire 6 227 millimeter either guided or unguided rockets, or it can fire a single. I believe it's a 600 millimeter, 3,600 pound guided ballistic missile. And the Ukrainians have the Tocha too, as well, which is a very, very similar system. Not the same type of range, obviously, as the HIMAR, but you have to ask the question, because the Ukrainians were able to hit the port of Berdyansk here in this locale. And if we look at the distance, and they were able to hit a ship, a large amphibious warship that was docked at this port with a fairly large system. The only alternative to that strike would have maybe been a very lucky hit on some of the ammunition and fuel by maybe a Bayraktar TB2 drone that could have been used in that strike. But if you remove the concept that they used a TB2 and they used some other system, then if we just look at the distance, I mean that's well over 100 kilometers, and that's if they were right up near, and more likely they were probably pretty far in terms of near the line of contact. So probably if they used a rocket system, it was 120, 130, 140 kilometer shot to take out that amphibious warship. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if we look at the HIMARS and we look at capability, well, the Ukrainians have very similar capabilities to that HIMARS system, other than the longer range, larger ballistic missile. And I'm not sure the United States would provide the larger ballistic missile unless they're really trying to ratchet up the tension and start to strike deep inside of the Russian Federation. And that could be something that both the strategy of the United States and the NATO alliance and the Ukrainian military could be looking to do, considering the amount of pressure that the Ukrainian military is under right now. They are taking appalling losses in this. I don't want to say recent shift. It's been a shift in strategy where we're not seeing the same type of rapid maneuver as I've talked about in previous episodes. I think this map, if we go up to the north and we kind of see what things look like during that rapid Russian operation, you can see that it was very rapid in nature. They did not keep a broad front. They created numerous salients, which put the Russian forces in a very bad position to both supply its forces and be very susceptible to Ukrainian counterattacks as well. And obviously, this plan just did not work out. And I do know that the Russian side said, "Oh, it was just a diversion." It was not a diversion. It was anything but a diversion, and it did not work out. It was a failed operation. Now, this new operation, which I would say the Russians should have instituted at the start of the campaign, that would really be designed to wear down and degrade the Ukrainian military, and then look at large-scale maneuver operations, would have been probably the prudent plan. And unfortunately for the Ukrainian military now, the Russians are applying that sort of strategy, that sort of high-pressure, focused strategy to both degrade and destroy the Ukrainian ability to supply its army in the field, at the same time taking down certain infrastructure, and then focusing on really pummeling frontline Ukrainian military units. And this is going to continue, and you can clearly see it's starting to have a serious toll on the Ukrainian capability and the Ukrainian the Ukrainian will to continue to resist Russian forces as well. Some units more than others. Obviously, a unit that is deployed further to the rear is having a much different experience than a lot of these Ukrainian units that are deployed on the front line. The problem is the Ukrainians right now are having difficulty in terms of pulling some of these line units off the line and then redeploying rear area elements back towards the main line of contact because of Russian interdiction efforts that are ongoing. The Russians continue to focus on while probably not completely as successful as they would like to be, they are starting to hamper the flow of supplies and material from west to east, and that sort of thing, in terms of just kind of creating an environment where it becomes more difficult for the Ukrainian military to deploy forces from, say, the western parts of Ukraine towards Kiev and other deeper cities towards the main lines of contact. And obviously, one of the biggest issues right now for the Ukrainian military is starting to become supplies of weapons and, in some cases, water and fuel and those sorts of equipment and sundries that are needed for to continue the war. But I don't think the providing of the HIMARS, outside of providing the ATACMS, the larger ballistic missile, will be that much of a game changer. Even if they're provided 50 or 60 of these systems, and they're going to have to receive a large sum of those 227 millimeter guided or unguided rockets to be to have an effect on the battlefield. And at the same time, those systems are going to start getting targeted as they come into the Ukraine by Russian forces. And especially the smaller version, the 227 millimeter version, because that means that those systems need to get at least about 40 miles, upwards to 100 kilometers, or much closer to the actual line of contact in order to start to be effective. And the Russians do have the capability to render counter battery fire against those systems. It's not that the HIMARS is such a unique system that the Russians don't have that same capability. The Russians absolutely have a similar system and a multitude of systems that are similar to HIMARS. And outside of the larger semi-ballistic missile, the ATACMS that it fires, there's also a similar systems that the Russians use, and obviously that's the Iskander, and that would be the semi-ballistic missile version of the Iskander that the Russians utilize as well. So different system, but the HIMARS is kind of an all-in-one, and so to speak, where it can use either or type of the smaller rocketry or the larger guided rocket. But I don't think it's much of a difference maker that it would change the outcome of the conflict. The only thing that the HIMARS would do is if the Ukrainians start getting a larger number of the larger caliber guided ballistic missiles, and then they could strike targets deep into the Russian rear or deep into Russia itself. And what I mean by that is 190 to 200 miles, roughly 300 kilometers. And if we look at, let's hypothetically say they put one of these HIMARS with the ballistic missile system here, and can they reach Kursk? Yes, they can. And and probably a number of Russian cities with that system, but not sure the U.S. In the West is willing to start an escalation that quickly. Difficult to say. At the same time, I had thought that it was a possibility that said system could have been used in the strike on that amphibious warship near Berdyansk. And who knows what system was used in that? And we've talked on that a bit, but that's pretty much the situation now. We'll have to wait and see what additional support the U.S. is going to provide to the Ukrainians. What's going to be the Russian response to that support? I know the Russians they appear to be drawing a line with the HIMARS, and again, it just depends on what sort of munitions are included with that HIMARS delivery, that multiple launch rocket system delivery to the Ukrainians. Is it the bigger ballistic missile rocket, or is it the smaller 227 millimeter rockets that the Ukrainians will be getting? But that's pretty much the news for today. We're continuing to watch what happens, and obviously, as things change and develop, we will, of course, report. I'm continuing to watch the buildup very closely, and any further deployments of Russian forces near Zaporizh, this area here, because I do believe at some point we could see an operation in that area. Right now, we got elements of the 42nd Motorized Rifle Division, the 19th Motorized Rifle Division, including some fairly highly competent naval infantry units that have been deployed into these areas, such as the 177th Marine Infantry Regiment. That unit was formerly utilized in Mariupol, along with the 810th Separate Marine Infantry Brigade as well. And we'll continue to watch this and see if something occurs south or southeast of Zaporizh in terms of a renewed Russian offensive, or a larger Russian offensive post the seizure of Severodonetsk. And then the question is, will they continue their drive towards Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, and look for that encirclement of forces in Lysychansk in this area? Again, difficult to say, but obviously we will continue to monitor the report and bring you the viewer content for your consumption. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day.